So the workshops that we're doing in these schools in Ellesmere and Ashmount are an adaptation of a dance performance that Matef and myself made called the Amplitude. And this is a piece very simply about acoustic waves. It's about sound and movement. So we're adapting the content, some of the content of the piece specifically to work with these children here. And basically we've created a highly amplified sound environment. So whatever is made, any sound, any movement, any noise created by the students is amplified, relayed, reverbed, re-echoed back into the space, and from that a soundscape is building. And from that, in terms of the movement, we really let the kids take the lead. So we follow what their interest is in terms of movement, in terms of activities happening in the space. They enter the space, they hear their own voices being played back in the space, their sounds, their movements making an impact. And we follow that through the improvisations. They take the lead. We asked staff and everybody involved that the space that we've created would be a non-verbal one. So already through all the adults in the room, if everybody sticks to that, then that supports the kids also staying in the non-verbal space. And dance is a non-verbal language, music mostly also. So for us it's not very difficult to be in our bodies and to communicate that to the kids. So I'm wearing a glove with a little radio mic attached to the inside of my hand. So wrapped up and linked up into the back of my trousers. And it's used at various times. So sometimes it's on, sometimes it's not. And Matev at the sound desk, he works with different effects. He can put one microphone up and the other one down. So we're improvising together according to what's going on. So, for example, if there was a boy in one of the morning sessions that was really, really involved with his hands. So he did this kind of versions of finger tutting. I don't know if you know. So he was very detailed. And just getting into this. So I went with him and we had a little dance together with his hands. So I was copying him. And this, because I have this microphone in my hand, we can go into all the detail of the kind of world he was building in this detail. We could amplify that, send it around the space. And there were moments when he noticed this, he perceived this, and went, wow. And then it went, wow, wow, wow. So his whole, I think his awareness of what he was doing, that was being sent around the space and came back into what we were doing together. This was really, for me, this was really, really a moving moment. There was also in the afternoon sessions we worked with a little bit older students, and actually we had a second glove and a second radio mic. So one of the students in some part of the session, one of the students was able to experience this radio mic on their bodies and become the instrument, or become the musician and the instrument, and work together with another student who was on Matev's desk working with the sound effects. So we're kind of recreating the set of the part of the performance. And just seeing in the last session some of the focus of these students being so clear with how their bodies were creating the sound, and so much working, really jamming together between these effects, and then listening to what they've created, it being reverbed around the space, was really quite astonishing, beautiful sound compositions coming out of this.
For a lot of children with autism, and definitely for some in that class, sound can be not a hindrance, but it makes it hard to focus on one thing. And it was amazing for them to be in an environment which was focused just on sound, and for that to be flipped on its head, and sound was their way of exploring, and they could take control of it in a positive way and share it with their peers in ways they could, whether that be chasing and clapping and copying each other, or by playing with an adult but then pausing to show that they were aware of what was happening and that they were tuning in to the environment.
What's been really nice to see is some of the engagement and the interaction that's been happening between students and students, and also between students and staff as well. And I think interestingly, when we saw some of the younger students, it's quite clear some of those kind of autistic children and what levels of interaction with their world they're at. You could quite clearly tell, I think, those children that were only interacting in their own space, and then those that were able to interact with their peers. And I think that changed a little bit actually as you kind of went through and as Gabby was doing her thing. So that was really lovely to see. I think some of the experiences that they've shown, that the students have shown themselves, it's quite fascinating really, just watching, because they're not told what to do. They are reacting completely. Nothing's right and nothing's wrong, and it's really nice to be able to see them lead that piece of work themselves, and the adults kind of react to them rather than the other way round.
Letting the kids take the lead, I said this before, but this for me, like in terms of the power of improvisation in this context, the power of contact improvisation, also working through touch, improvised touch. I think it's got really a way to go.
So when we first walked in and we were told not to give any verbal instructions, it was a bit terrifying. My heart sunk, I was a bit worried, but the group just coped really well, copying Gabby, following Gabby. You could tell there's a bit of eye contact, looking around, seeing if it was okay, but I think they liked the freedom of it, and they liked the freedom of the room, and just they could do whatever they wanted to do. I thought the whole experience was amazing. It was so fascinating to watch the children and just sit back and be a part of it, but also just be an observer instead of in the thick of it. And it was just amazing. And the feedback from the children was amazing. The verbal feedback and just watching them and seeing their faces, it was brilliant.
One of the things that I noticed was that as soon as the students went into the room, they were immediately engaged and interested and interacting. They were exploring with what was going on and how their movement around the room was affecting the sound. And I worked with a visually impaired child, and it was particularly nice to see the way that he was interested in how the movements altered the sounds that were being produced, and the deep rumbling sounds as well was you could feel the vibrations. So that was really interesting, the fact that it was multi-sensory. It wasn't just the sounds that they were hearing, but you could feel the vibrations as well.